The talk's title is The Beauty and the Confusion Around Neo Advaita. Yeah, lovely. So nice. So nice. Okay. So as a lot of you most probably know, if you've been following me for a lot of years, when I first started speaking about non-duality, I predominantly spoke about the absolute, and I didn't really speak about integration into the person or settling down of the person prior to waking up. I just spoke about the absolute. Yeah. And I loved it. I found it just super beautiful, and it was just what wanted to come out of my mouth. Yeah, and it just was really nourishing speaking in that way. Like my body just really came alive speaking like that. And I spoke very simply. I didn't really go into many stories, just really just kept pointing to the absolute and just dismissed anything personal. Yeah. And then I think in about 2016 or 17, I began to change. I think it was more 2016. So I started speaking in 2011. So 5 years. Yeah. And there were quite a few reasons which I've talked about before online as to why I stopped speaking in the absolute way. It felt like from here I was like slapped around a bit. Yeah. This could really go into story time now. I'm not sure if it's what you want to hear. Yeah, so the slapping around was, for those first 5 years, meeting seekers and becoming a public figure on the internet and speaking with people and meeting people in person. I spoke a lot in India in the first years and in Thailand. And I think I came back to Europe in 2013. Yeah. I think I went to India again, I can't remember. Yeah, so that was the first few years were quite intense. And I kind of I feel like I have a good conceptualization of why that was intense. But I just have to check in with myself as to how much I want to share over the internet. I think the best way to say it is that I didn't have the correct boundaries for being a public speaker. I'm not sure if anybody is ready for that, for being a public person. Like when you're not a public person, you just automatically think that people can deal with that and that there's no complications with it. Like now I feel like it must be awful to be a really famous person in the media, and I'm so happy that my talks stay at this level because it's so intense being in the public arena, and I really have a very small audience. So yeah, for me to be saying that, imagine what it's like if every video you do gets like 2 million views. So that's quite something, or like 6 million views or 10 million views. The reason why it's quite intense is when you put yourself out there, people that listen automatically feel that it's their right to be able to judge you, which I'm not judging people for doing that, that's their prerogative. So your audience feel they've got an automatic right to judge you. Or anyone that sees it has a right. And then also I think when you're a young woman that puts yourself onto the internet, I was 30 at the time, 31 at the time, and oh no, I was 30 when I started, yeah. And when you're also a young woman, you also have this whole category of attention as well that you're not necessarily prepared for. So as a young woman, you don't really project that people are being attracted to you or having like these jealousy or aversion issues to you around your sex and the way that you look, because that's just the way you look, and you don't really think about it. If you're a young woman, you don't really think about the fact that men are attracted to you. You obviously think about it when you're attracted to a man, but you don't really think about it. And then also their disbalance with that, like, so what they do with that as well. Yeah, and I think all of these things made me very unprepared to be a talker. And then adding on to that, speaking about Neo Advaita, when in 2011 it really wasn't on the internet, like non-duality was, but it was really not popular. So all of these dynamics came together, and then I was suddenly getting a lot of attention, and like disbalanced attention that I wasn't prepared for. So aggression, people following you too intensely. You could put that into another word, but I just don't want to put that and say that online. But like following you, which is a little bit, it becomes a little bit scary or crosses your boundaries. And this combination, so of not being many other Neo Advaita non-duality speakers out there, and young women out there that speak about it. Now there's loads. And also not being psychologically prepared to put up really strong boundaries, I feel like I got a bit slapped around, which was a bit traumatizing. I wasn't prepared like for the boundaries, but I think it was beautiful because, like everything that is challenging, it helps you expand and grow. And it also made me not question non-duality, like my love for non-duality, but I think prior to that I thought that non-duality, so just speaking with Neo Advaita, was absolute freedom, and the message sorted everything out. It would sort out war, it would sort out personalities, it would sort out everything. It was like the one solution to everything. And I think through doing that I realized it really wasn't, because I was attracting some very unbalanced energies through the internet that were really quite aggressive at points. And so I could see that it wasn't the answer to everything. And I could also see myself getting a bit traumatized by it. Yeah. It is the answer to everything, because then it's the ultimate freedom. But it just doesn't sort out everything on the personal level, and I think that was a belief that I was attached to prior to 2016. So I got like boost. Yeah. And so then I think that I had to heal a part in me from those 5 years of being a speaker and not having the correct boundaries, which were there because of trauma which had happened in childhood, and also because nobody is prepared for becoming a public person. We don't get training for that in school because the internet in this form didn't exist when I was in school. So I had to go on like working out why my boundaries weren't better, and then also understanding the psychology from the other side, like of what they were seeing in me and what they were attracted to in me, and then working out how to deal with that, and then also becoming conscious that people that were coming to my talks, not everybody, but some of the people that were coming to my talks, personality was really not balanced. And I began to understand that part of their attraction to my talk was the fact that they believed they didn't have to deal with that was disbalanced. So they came to the talk and they could perceive that there was a problem, but it was too vulnerable to them to make them look at their psychology, too much shame or guilt or embarrassment or pride. So they weren't prepared to look at their psychology. So then non-duality is kind of like the answer to that, because it says, you know, this is the answer to everything. This is the absolute freedom. And you become this super person from it. You become an enlightened person. And to somebody who's got an unbalanced personality, it's like, I can be the king of the world or the queen of the world. I can be the most superior person there is by becoming enlightened. And even though they're not consciously thinking about this, I don't have to look at my shadow or my darkness inside myself, which is what I've been running away from a lot of my life. So I kind of realized there was like a blind spot in myself, and that the Neo Advaita wasn't addressing personality disorders. If somebody had sorted out their personality and then came to Neo Advaita, like, that's not a problem, but that wasn't what I was attracting. That was few and far between, unfortunately. Like, that was maybe 10% of the people. Most of the people hadn't sorted out their personality, so their personality was kind of like obsessed with this idea of being a supreme human being that is perfect and above others, although this is unconscious, and intense aversion to seeing anything dark in themselves. Yeah, it was sad. I feel like I had to go through a mourning of my belief in non-duality, because I really believed it was the answer to everything. That you just had to hear the message and there could be an awakening and all of that would be gone. There is a part of me that still feels that's true, but most of the time it's not. That can happen, but most of the time not. Yeah, so I began to change the way I spoke. It wasn't conscious. It was through exploring these traumas that were in me that were not allowing me to erect the correct boundaries. And I'm really talking, I really wasn't erecting the correct boundaries. Like, I was doing a retreat and I would come away from the retreat so exhausted that I would sleep solidly for 3 days. And part of that was because on the retreat, like, I was just giving way too much. Yeah. Whereas now I know I can do like 3 or 4 hours of speaking in a group and I can't do anything else. I can't do one-to-one sessions outside. Where I was like socializing with people. I was doing one-to-one sessions with people. And this is boundaries. This is about not having good boundaries. And also with the men, like, I really didn't have good boundaries there. And I feel like if you are wanting to take advantage of someone, it's not a conscious thing, but if you are wanting to take advantage of someone, there is particular traits that people will look for in that person, like weaknesses, and then they will keep pushing and pushing against that, those weaknesses. It's not a conscious thing, it's just the nature of what happens in these abuse victim situations. In the end, there really isn't, like, I don't mean to say I was the victim and there was an abuser, because I don't really believe in those definitions. It's like a dynamic that happens. But the dynamic that often happens is that the person that wants to push across somebody's boundaries to get what they want will look for weak boundaries. They will look for somebody that has extreme dyslexia and can't remember things. Because if I can't remember things, how can I be very strong in an argument? They will look for somebody that is susceptible to being told they've done something wrong, which again comes back to dyslexia. Or they will look for somebody that is over conscientious or has strong empathy, and it's not a conscious thing that they're doing. It's like most probably what they learned in childhood, but then you can see that through the internet and coming to the retreats, and it's just not a good situation to happen. Yeah, I hope through sharing this it helps other people that are listening in this dynamic. Yeah, so there's and ironically, as I began to heal these boundaries in myself and began to understand them better, it could also be that I aged, and so because I'm not in that younger age range anymore, it stopped. But over the years, the difficulties that I had with men through the internet and inappropriate emails and repetitive emails and very horrible, scary comments decreased. So as I progressed through that, it decreased. I also think it's because I maybe became more sturdy in myself. I'm not sure though if that put it off. But it also could be age as well, because I do think that women that are putting themselves on the internet between the age of 0 to 35 or maybe 40 are more vulnerable. Yeah. So the beauty of Neo Advaita is the message is like honey. It's so beautiful. Like this continuous pointing to this is it, this is it. There is no time. And if you really listen beyond the personality, it's like a bird song to this moment. It's like calling you home. It's like a meditation. It's this resonance that happens, which is so beautiful. You could call it the absolute when the absolute is spoken of, and I really think it's beautiful. I hear it now and my whole body is like I still love the subject as much as when I first heard it. So that's the beauty of Neo Advaita, is it's a beautiful message. The difficulty of it, I think, is what I've said, is that it often attracts people that don't want to look at their shit. And I then think in those people it just exacerbates their shit. It gives it, they begin to, it just exacerbates it. Not all the time, there's always exceptions, yeah. But having said that, I don't know if those sorts of people would listen to me, because, or to another teacher which speaks more about the person, because it's very distressing to them. And the way that they will defend that in their mind is they will say, oh, they're speaking a load of shit, they're just trying to con us and get money out of us. And the only true message is like Neo Advaita. That's one way they'll defend it in their mind. Yeah, I do think that like there is some form of truth in that, but I don't think them saying it comes from truth. I think there's an energy of like an openness, like not a truth as in like I'm conning you or that other people are conning you. It's just that this idea that there is a somebody that's going to become enlightened isn't true. So in that initial idea, that is true. And it's not that everybody else is conning you for money or something. It's not that way at all, because the Neo Advaita teachers charge and are more popular than, mostly more popular in the non-duality scene than the non-Neo Advaita teachers. So I don't think that's the case. But it does come with this problem when you begin to speak about the person, is that the mind thinks, okay, I'm going to do these things and I'm going to become enlightened. Whereas to me, you just deal with the personality, because more than likely non-duality will be heard when the personality is more calm. If the personality is deep in seeking, it's highly unlikely that non-duality will be heard. And experience this for yourself. Like, when you resonate with me is more than likely when your personality is more in peace. Sometimes maybe when your personality is like you're really in hell and discomfort, you hear it and it settles it down. But like when you really resonate with this message, it's more when your personality is at peace, and then you really like have these openings. Yeah. I also think that humans have a tendency for paranoia that people are taking advantage of them. So when that message gets put in there that somebody's taking advantage of them, then they're very sensitive to it. It's like a big wound. But how would I be taking advantage of you in these talks? Like, if this is a strong issue that you're having with me now, like, I'm not asking you for money. I just put these talks out. I do one-to-one sessions, and I do sometimes, but I've done one in the last like 4 or 5 years, I think, group talk, and then in the last 2 years I haven't done any retreats, like group talk online. I don't think I've done one for years. I did one in January. I can't really remember. But now, in me just speaking through the computer, maybe you could say I'm trying to become more successful or more popular. I really don't think that's the case. I think that this is about my limit of what I can do in being in the public forum. Yeah. I don't think my personality is, I don't know if anybody's personality is designed to be really popular. Yeah. But I know that this is a strong paranoia. It was a strong paranoia in me too. I just wasn't really conscious of it as well. a big injury in humanity, that people are taking advantage of us. I listened to this really good psychologist called Dr. Kirk Honda. You can find it on my reference page. And he always says that you mustn't assume. Like, we do have to assume sometimes to protect ourselves, but it's best not to assume. Assume that people are doing bad things to you. Sometimes we have to do it to protect ourselves. So I'm not saying this is the be-all and end-all answer, but yeah, to not assume. So you have feelings or thoughts coming up to someone, but not assume. Just notice that there's feelings and thoughts coming up towards them, and then looking like, what does that say about what's happening here? I can't say if this is about the other person or not. Yeah. So now let's go to some more non-dual pointing. Non-dual pointing. So what is Neo Advaita? To all of those that still feel lost in the person and don't really know what's being talked about by the absolute. We don't have to call it Neo Advaita. That's such a Neo Advaita. Neo post modernism. Neo post modernism. Yeah, so you just do talking about the absolute. So right now, I love it. Right now, you might think that there is a Lisa here speaking to you, especially because I've just told you all these stories, and you might think that those stories are Lisa. We could say the body has those stories. So the body has seemingly had these experiences, and the body has these stories, and that adds to the character of Lisa. But the character of Lisa isn't a fixed thing. The character of Lisa is in fluctuation and changes with emotions, changes with thoughts, with ideas, with new experiences. It's like a constant evolution, the character of Lisa, just like your characters. It's not a fixed thing. We like fixed things because it makes it safe. So we like to have this idea of who Lisa is, and then an idea of who we are, and then there's a fixed relationship. But Lisa, like your character, is always moving and actually can't grasp. It's not like a solid thing. It's not like a cushion or a sofa. It's this ethereal thing that appears that we label two bodies. So for my dog Khaleesi, if you've never heard of her before, she doesn't believe that she's a street dog from Thailand. She doesn't know that she belongs to Lisa, or that she lives in Europe, or that her owner speaks English, or that she gets the best food in the dog world. She doesn't know that she should have more gratitude for her food and how much it costs us. Hello, Khaleesi? Yeah. She doesn't know that she's eating a chicken which was once alive. Like, she doesn't have this character as her, but her body has character, and there's stories that you can put to her, but it's an ethereal thing that's always changing. To her, it's gone. The idea that who she is, or that her character is somebody that was from Thailand, is like absolutely redundant. It's like gone. It's like, yeah, what, love? I come from Thailand. No, I don't. I come from here. I'm here. Bloody moron. She thinks I come from Thailand. She can't remember Thailand. She doesn't even know it's called Thailand. She's from here. Here. So our characters are like really ethereal things that we've kind of made up and we're telling each other about. But they're like a habit that peers through the body. So Lisa's character always appears like Lisa and has particular memories that come with that character. So right now, non-duality is being expressed through the Lisa character, which she always does the kind of same, wears the same kind of earrings, puffs up her hair sometimes it's flat. rings, bling, ding, 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 bracelets, bracelets. Yeah. But that's not who you are. In a way, you could say that doesn't exist. It's like a chemical reaction that's appearing at every moment. It's not who you are. You are not your story. You're not your thoughts. You're not your past. You're not your good actions or bad actions or what's happened to you. That is a story that goes through the body, but it's not who you are. It's just as absurd as saying you're the sofa, or you're the sky, or you're the light. We say it in language because that's how we communicate, but it's not actually who you are. There is something happening now which is always here and never leaves, and it's always the same. And that is who you are. But this is overlooked because you're so obsessed with the person and seeking to fulfill the person's wants and needs and desires. But there is something else here. Was ist das? Huh? Was ist das? Ja. And that can't really be named. I mean, I could say it's consciousness. But what is consciousness? I don't mean consciousness that's somewhere in the head, separate from things. But there is always an awakeness. If there was no awakeness, there would be no thing. So awakeness is fundamental. You could also say life, but not life as in a particular thing or an idea. You could say no thing or everything, or God, or mystery. I am, that sense of being. But I'm going to go for looking now, because that's what other non-duality teachers do, and that seems like the simplest way of speaking about it. There is this looking now, this awakeness that's happening. And that's not something that's happening because of the character. That's not something that's happening because of your body. That's not something that flows in time. It's not something that comes and goes. It's not something that you lose. It is here. It is inherent in life. And it's got nothing to do with the personality. It's got nothing to do with your emotions. And it's this expansiveness. It's not located anywhere. It's not inside your brain. It doesn't die with your body. It doesn't belong to your person. You don't get consciousness because your person exists. The consciousness is, and then the person arises in that. And that's a fundamentally different way of thinking than what all humans, or 99.9999999% of humans think. And to me, the identification with the person is suffering. To me, it's not about making the person perfect, although there is seemingly a process of calming that person down, calming it down, and then integrating this more into the person, so the person expands more into this recognition. Yes, there does seem to be that, but it's not dependent on the person in any way. There is always this awakeness. You're not dead now. There's not non-existence. There is existence. That is always here. In order for there to be experiencing, there needs to be a consciousness of it. Otherwise it would be non-experiencing. It would be nothing, 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 nothing. Which this is also, like nothing and everything. Yeah, baby, yeah. You can see why I loved expressing what we call Neo Advaita, or the Absolute. It's just heaven. It's so beautiful. So what is looking now? There is simply pure looking, which isn't a thing and is all things. So you could say there is everything looking now. And that's not about you, like the ego might be like, oh, I am God. It's not about you. It's so impersonal. The looking doesn't care about anything, and it's not that it doesn't even not care. It just doesn't have that ability. It's beyond care or not care. It's just looking. It's beyond doing or not doing. It's beyond you and me. It just is experiencing perfectly still, watching itself in its absolute freedom. And it's here in every experience, but most of the time humans are fixated on resolving pleasure, getting pleasure, and avoiding pain. Constantly this time-bound game of like time, get, future, void. This constant agitation to get somewhere, but there is something that is not agitated now in the experience. If you're deeply suffering, it might be like, oh God, I can't even bear this. What's she talking about? But as the personality relaxes, what is here that isn't suffering? What is here that never moves? What is here, been here throughout your life? Perception. There always has to be perception. And that perception is free. It's not a thing, nothing, and everything. It is no thing and all things. And that perception comes with this sense of being, which is love. So this empty perception and then this love element of being. These are always there. You've never not been. You can never not be. It's impossible. Not being doesn't exist. It never exists. It never will exist. There can never be not being. There can only be 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 being. What has never left? What always is? Find this place, but not you finding this place. You is in time, me is time. T-I-M-E. You see, there's always me in time. It's what you are. It's that which hears now. It's beyond thinking. It's that which experiences now. It's that which sees. But it's not seeing an object. The seeing and the object are the same. The hearing and the heard are the same. The feeling and the felt are the same. Okay, we can go to questions now. That was a long introduction. That was a long introduction. So if you have any questions, you ask through Skype. My Skype address is Lisa Cairns 12. You can find it in the box below. Yeah, and you can write your questions, or you can ask to call in. If you want to call in, just put call me with nothing else after it. If you want to call in, please make sure you have a headset, microphone, a good internet connection, and a quiet place. Do not call me, please. I will call you when I'm ready.